Hi there. How you doing? Yeah, my name is Sean, and this is my studio. That's where we are. We're in my studio. My name is Sean, and this is my YouTube channel, Direct Action Gaming. That's where you are. You're on my channel. We play games here. I swear we do. I will play a game. You saw it in the title, probably. I'm going to assume you are a human being that intentionally clicked on this video to see me play a game. That's the assumption that I'm going to be going with from now on as I talk to you, the human person that decided to click on this video. Anyway, so, hey, we are playing a game. We are going to do that. But let's chat, shall we? I was planning this out in my head, kind of thinking that, like, it might be nice to just talk for a bit before we play our game today. I usually start every video like this, but beyond, like, the basics of describing the game and maybe a few channel plugs, I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about the channel today and why it is the way it is, because it's definitely something that's been on my mind lately, because of course it is. Like, this channel is a very important thing to me. It's something that I started over a year ago. It's something that I put an awful lot of time into, and it's something I plan to keep putting a lot more time into and try to develop and whatnot. But I guess you might say my videos up till this point are very genuine, to put a positive spin on it, shall we say. If you're trying to be charitable about what I do here, you might say, oh, it's genuine stuff. It's authentic. It's clearly made by a real person, me. Although, nowadays it is genuinely getting more difficult to determine what actually is real on the internet. And as such, what is real in our world, that people seem to be having a more difficult time perceiving, shall we say. And there are a lot of reasons for this, but I think the two biggest reasons are just what the internet is now. Like, it used to be something different. That shouldn't be a controversial statement, right? The internet has changed. What's controversial is saying that it hasn't changed for the better, that it's getting worse. And maybe that's only a little controversial, because I swear I'm hearing more and more people point this out all the time, that, like, hey, the internet kind of sucks now. It's not just a little bit worse. It's not just not great. It kind of sucks in a lot of ways. And I think the biggest reason for this, being, the big goofy socialist leftist that I am, is obviously, like, my go-to reason, capitalism. But that's not as lazy as it might sound, right? Because there are some great arguments to be made as to how the system of capital is affecting the internet and what it is. And not even just that, like, obviously our entire world, how we even perceive art and receive and interpret information, and yada, yada, yada. And mostly what I'm talking about here is algorithms, ads, and AI, right? The three A's, triple A, okay? Like, there's a lot of people talking about, for example, how, like, Google is now kind of useless. And or, like, it used to be you would say, oh, I'll Google that, and I'll just find out what I need to know, and it won't take very long, and it'll work pretty good. That used to be a thing. Now, not so much, because Google is far more concerned with serving you ads and shoving their goofy AI tool that you never asked for down your throat. Like, that is the thing that is actually getting shoved down our throat, by the way, not gay people existing and asserting the fact that they are real and that they do exist. No, it's this AI that we don't have a choice, for the most part, as to whether we use it or not. In fact, what really pissed me off lately was hearing that Google, who owns YouTube, by the way, if you did not know that, has decided recently, I don't know if this is still the case, but they made a decision at one point that, yeah, we're just going to use AI to edit people's videos for them and make their ears look better or something. Which means Google, the company, is taking the videos that I and everyone else put a lot of time and effort into making, and they are editing those videos without our consent and without informing us. That's a problem. I don't like that. I don't know why anyone would like that. And that's just one example, right? That's one, well, two, I guess I gave, is Google search being freaking useless now, and the fact that these companies are injecting AI into everything, despite the fact that at this point, public opinion is definitely shifting against these goofy AI tools that just seem to be making everything worse. You know, I can't be the only one that is looking at all this crap and saying, who is this for? Why are we doing this? Why are we editing people's videos without informing them of it or asking for their consent? And by the way, if you haven't heard anybody explain how these goofy AI tools work, especially in terms of like the image generation tools and whatnot, that's more or less what this quote unquote AI is, right? It scrapes the internet and just takes a bunch of stuff that people and or other AI programs made and just shoving it into some giant database. And then when somebody wants to use Grok to make a picture of a Christmas tree on fire or whatever the hell it is they want, they just put Christmas tree on fire in the prompt, and then the thing searches the database for a bunch of stuff it can smush together to make what isn't really a new picture. It's just a Frankenstein's amalgamation of a bunch of crap that real people like me and you spent a lot of time and effort making. And then that's not even starting to talk about the algorithms and what they are. They are the original problem, really. The AI is the new kid on the block. The algorithm and the ads have always been the original problem. And or we're getting more and more ads all the goddamn time. I know I'm still hearing about video games that will put ads within the video game. That did not used to be a thing. You used to just buy a game at the game store for like $60 and you got a game and you just played the game, and that was your game that you played at home because you bought it. But it doesn't work that way anymore now, does it? With all this digital entertainment that we have now. You rent a game, basically, You go to Steam and you pay X amount of dollars to get a game that is only sort of yours. Sure, it's in your Steam library, it's in your profile, it's on Steam servers somewhere, but that's kind of the issue. It is on Steam's servers, and you don't control those. You don't own those servers, which is why you don't own that game. How could you own that game when Steam at any point could just decide to sell all their servers to the Department of War? That's right, it's called the Department of War now. This is no longer the Department of Defense here in America. For some reason, we had to rename it to the Department of War because, I don't know, we live in hell. Okay, I do have a point. I'm saying all this about AI, algorithms, and ads. And I might as well say, when it comes to algorithms, the problem I have with that is not just the fact that it does affect me now that I am trying to grow a YouTube channel, because there's so much that I cannot control about how this algorithm that dictates how the entire YouTube platform works will affect the stuff that I upload onto this platform. So there may be all sorts of people that would actually want to see the stuff that I'm making, but it's not getting served to them because I guess, the algorithm doesn't deem my stuff to be worth their time. So they just don't see it. And heck, there's even this thing I've heard about where they're doing restricted mode, or restricted mode is a thing that has existed, and it was an option that you could turn on. Although I did work in public schools as a janitor for a little while, and I am aware that when you go to a network or a public school network and you try to log into the Wi-Fi for that network, you no longer have a choice about restricted mode. So that's kind of how that restricted mode started, in a sense of it's just going to get turned on and you're not going to be informed of that necessarily. I mean, in that instance, it would say now it's in restricted mode because you signed into this network. That's fine, I guess. But here's the thing, with restricted mode, it will literally remove videos from your feed without telling you. Videos will just disappear, and you will not know that they have disappeared, nor will you know why they disappeared. The only thing we have to go on is YouTube saying, oh yeah, restricted mode gets rid of the mature stuff that we don't want the kids seeing. And obviously we want to protect the kids. We don't want them seeing bad stuff on the internet, do we? No, we don't want that. Here's the thing though. I did a test on my tiny little channel here. I turned on restricted mode. And do you want to know what it removed? I'll tell you what restricted mode removed. It removed the video that I did about my cat Lucky dying. It was a eulogy for my cat Lucky. It was a fairly long video because I do like making those where I just kind of ramble on like I'm doing right now. And I just told Lucky's story. I talked about all the cats that I've ever encountered in my life and what they taught me and blah, blah, blah. And mostly, of course, I was talking about Lucky and his story and how he came into my life and how he touched it and all that jazz. And that's the mature thing that the kids can't see. A man talking about his cat that is dead. So the point here is, I'm just going to do what I want with this channel. All right. I don't care anymore what people want to tell me about the stuff that I'm making and how it's not good enough because I don't edit it enough, or, you know, it's too long and rambly and blah, blah, blah. If I want to go in a different direction with this channel, I will. And I kind of don't care right now how much the algorithm punishes me, because really the main point I want to make here is, besides all this, you know, AI algorithm and blah, 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 I don't have as much time to devote to this channel as I used to. I literally don't. I've got, obviously I work full time. I have a job. That is a thing. You kind of have to have a job to make money to survive. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I started this channel with the hope that maybe I could turn this into a way of making a living so that I don't have to have a day job anymore. I mean, come on, practically every YouTuber talks about that, right? About how they have a day job and they wish they could quit it so they could focus more on their channel that they love. Duh. You probably heard this before if you spent any amount of time on YouTube. So that's the thing. Like, I want to play games and write stories and entertain people. That would be awesome. I'm starting to wonder now, though, legitimately, like, is this a thing that I will actually be able to do, like, with the way the internet is going? Like, is my channel actually going to be able to grow enough and get enough donations? Because, see, that's the thing. That's another thing. I really don't want to have to take sponsorships. I'm the kind of person who would probably legitimately recommend to you, hey, when you watch YouTube, you should watch it in the Mozilla Firefox browser. Yes, you should switch to Firefox from Chrome. You should turn on Privacy Badger, and I think there's another one. I forget what it's called. That's also an ad blocker, but I can't go back now. Like, I've been watching YouTube in Firefox with those plugins for a while now, and like, I just never see ads. I never see any ads. And this even applies to like some of these movies that they have on YouTube that are free with ads. That means I just get to watch movies for free now. And I didn't have to pay a dime. I did not have to pay YouTube a single dime to get their premium package or what the fuck ever. Okay? So I would recommend that to anybody, because of course you don't like ads. Who likes ads? Especially nowadays. Who likes ads? Who enjoys these ads that get shoved into everything? And so many of them are just outright scams. And the point there is, if I want to grow this channel organically and try to somehow make a living off of just donations, at the very least, I will need to have alternate forms of income, such as starting some kind of printing business on Etsy or something like that. And even then, I'm still dealing with an algorithm on another platform that might punish me for some random crap that I don't really have any control over. So, on top of all that, besides my full-time job and the way these platforms are working, I'm also organizing for DSA. I know I've mentioned this before. I am a dues-paying member of DSA. I don't just pay dues. I go to meetings, and I don't just go to meetings. I go to work group meetings, and I try to do stuff. One of the things I'm doing is I'm working with the labor working group, because I got elected as the steward for my union at my job site. So I am now a union steward. And Most people would probably look at all that and say, okay, but you really only have the one job, right? You're working full time. That's your job. That's all you have. No, that isn't all I have. That's the job that I have that pays me for swinging a mop around. But there are all these other things that I also do that I am not getting paid for that is still work. And in fact, as odd as it may sound, I find all this other stuff that I'm doing, the game sessions that I'm recording, the steward labor organizing work that I am now doing, and the organizing work that I am doing for DSA, all of that is so much more important to me than the job that I have, that I'm getting paid poverty wages for, basically. That's a thing that I do because I have to, not because I want to. I'm doing this. I'm talking to you right now because this is what I want to do. Okay, so we're at 20 minutes now. And that was all to just sort of try and explain why I don't have flashy videos with lots of like retention editing and memes and sound effects, and I'm not writing scripts and all this other jazz, mainly because there just isn't enough time. Learning how to edit takes time. Writing scripts takes time. And I guess that's why most of my videos are just me doing this, turning on a camera, my phone's camera, just talking for a bit, just recording myself as I play the game. Once the game that I'm playing is over, then we switch back to talking a little bit, and then we end the video. And that's the format that you can expect on Direct Action Gaming for who knows how long now. Like, as long as I still have this day job that I have to go to, I can't focus an awful lot on this work that I'm trying to do here. You know, so I have a lot of goals that I would like to accomplish with this channel beyond just recording myself in my apartment playing games. I would love to tell stories. I would love to create like unique campaigns, maybe even create my own games. I would love to just dive into all kinds of stuff. If you're new here, I should probably also say I delve into politics a little bit. If you're not new here, you probably know that at the end of every video, I usually go on a bit of a rant about politics because that's where my political links are. I talk about my political links at the end of the video. And what I would like to do at some point is maybe make some video essays where I am interpreting the games that I play, if you know what I mean. I am sort of trying to talk about what they mean in a philosophical type of sense. And I've dabbled in this on this channel a little bit before. I've dabbled in it. And I would like to do more of that. But for the most part, right now, it's challenging enough just to put up like a basic video where I just sort of get a game ready to play, record myself talking and playing the game, and then making like a very basic sort of thumbnail, basic description, and just sort of throwing it up there. And the only kind of fancy stuff that I've learned how to do is just add in some end cards at the end of the video, which give you guys some custom links to click on that have something to do with my channel. Whereas if you haven't done that, here's a pro tip if you want to try to make videos. If you don't do the end card thing, YouTube is just going to throw up a bunch of random videos that are suggested by the algorithm. And we already talked about the algorithm, right? I don't like the algorithm. I don't. It's getting worse all the time, okay? So we're just going to play a game. We're going to do that. And we might as well start talking about the game we are going to be playing, because that is what I'm supposed to be doing mostly with this portion of the video, is talk a little bit about the game that we are playing and then make a segue to the table so that we can see what's on the table. That's direct action gaming in a nutshell. Raxxon. That is the game. Oh my gosh, it's 25 minutes and I still haven't said the name of the game yet. Raxxon. Raxxon is the game that we are playing, and if you are unfamiliar with the term Raxxon, I won't blame you that much. Basically, if you are familiar with Resident Evil, though, perhaps you're familiar with the Umbrella Corporation. Raxxon is basically a dime store umbrella corporation. Okay, so I have this game called Raxxon. It's a very simple card-based type game. I've never played Pandemic, but I imagine it's kind of like that game. It's kind of like Pandemic. Basically, Raxxon is a spin-off of another game that I have that I will eventually feature on this channel, I hope. Dead of Winter. Now, Dead of Winter it's a zombie game, and Raxxon is pretty much a zombie apocalypse version of Pandemic, more or less, I think. So you play as these characters that are trying to manage the zombie pandemic and get as many healthy people out in time as they can. That's more or less how the game works. So we're about to take a good first look at this game. We're going to go through the intro version of it. And this is one of those games where you get to tweak the difficulty by removing various cards and changing up the rules a little bit. They do have an intro version, which is, I guess, their easy version, but it's, I suppose it's the recommended beginning way to play the game so that you can sort of get a handle on it and understand the basics before you start to up the difficulty a bit and make things a little more challenging for yourself. So for the intro version, we do that. We do remove like a bunch of cards from the population draw pile and blah, 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 blah. At this point, I might as well just show what's on the table so I can talk about this game in a little bit more detail, insofar as you guys seeing what all these things are. But yes, the game is Raxxon. We're going to check that out. Before we do that, I'm going to do a few channel plugs really quickly. I promise. It'll be super quick. I got a donation site, Ko-fi. That is in the description. If you like what I do here and you want to throw me a few bucks, you can go to Ko-fi and do that. You can elect to give me any sort of dollar amount that you want. It could just be $1, $2 to $3. Just buy me a coffee. It's fine. You can do that. Also, Blue Sky. I am also on Blue Sky. And usually I segue to the table by saying, what is on Blue Sky? Well, here it is. But this game does not include painted miniatures. So I don't know. And yeah, here's the table, but over here we got the workbench. And here is... Great, it's not focusing properly. Now you can see it. That's Odin. Odin is one of the Zombicide 2nd Edition characters that I am working on. I'm trying to repaint Zombicide 2nd Edition. I would like to jump back into that game next month, because that's October, and it'd be very appropriate to get right back into Zombicide once it's Halloween. And one thing I'm doing for DSA is organizing a DSA game night. And our next game night is going to be Halloween themed, because our next game night is going to be in October. So that's why we are playing this game right now. It's because I have selected Zombicide Raxxon, and this other game over here, Until Daylight, as... Hi, Harry. How you doing? He just loves to randomly jump on the table and knock everything over. Anyway, we're playing some zombie games for the next DSA event, and I figured it would be a good idea to get some practice with these other zombie games, Raxxon and Until Daylight, before that event. So here we are. We're checking out Raxxon, and Harry, let's just go over some of the components real quick before we get started. Harry's probably gonna be jumping up here like a lot. What I love about this game is how simple yet complex it is. I love games like this. That, I mean, there's you can see there's literally like 2 decks of cards. You have the population deck, which is over on this side of this tiny board. That is the game board. It is microscopic compared to all sorts of other game boards out there. On the right side of the game board, we have these Raxxon cards that basically represent like random things that happen throughout the course of the game. Okay? Population forms like the crowd. You put your crowds somewhere in the middle of the table. And the game is more or less you deal with crowds on a day-by-day basis, and you're trying to filter healthy people out of the crowd into the evacuation pile. And that's kind of it. Like, you, on the intro version of the game, you need to get 20 healthy cards into the evacuation pile, and then you have won the game. And that's all there is to it. Okay, but there's all this other stuff going on here as well, such as, for example, you've got this quarantine zone that you would be putting infected cards into. Things can happen with that. There's also this Raxxon power bar at the bottom of the board. And that's what's kind of neat, is there's like this... you don't just have to worry about zombies in this game. You also need to worry about the Raxxon Corporation and, you know, that company getting too much power and being able to conquer the city and whatnot. So, and I believe the Raxxon power mostly increases thanks to these Raxxon cards and certain decisions that you might be forced to make. And so we're going to see how that works. We also have these power... I think they're called power tokens. Or are they active? I think they might be activation tokens. I forget what these are called exactly. But long story short, these tokens go on these character sheets, right? Now, when we're playing solo like this, we can basically choose which character we want to be for a turn, right? And I'm going to go into how turns function in a nutshell soon enough. But all you need to understand for now is, like, these little tokens will go on these character sheets. And it's just as simple as, like, all right, Meryl Wolf, we're going to select her, and we want to do an evacuation with her. That means we have to put a token here on the first slot for evacuation. And that means we get to do an evacuation, but we only get to do an evacuation one more time. And the next time we do that, or actually the next time we do any action, we have to trigger the consequence of this one evacuation thing that we did. And so you can see this symbol here above the token. So that's basically a thing that Meryl will have to do on her next turn if she doesn't want to pass. Okay? And besides the rule book, that is it for components. All right, and we're gonna see how this stuff all works together soon enough. So let me put this on pause, and then I'll set y'all up, and we'll get started playing the game finally after half an hour or so. Hold on a second. Okay, so y'all have more or less a bird's eye view of the table here, and let's get started. Okay. So the way this works in solo is, of course, a little bit different than it normally works. And normally you can play this game from anywhere 1 to 4 people. You can play it with up to 4 people for this game. Now, when you do solo, you basically can select which character you want to be for each turn. And I guess the first thing I should describe is how the game flows, more or less, right? So what we have is, it's kind of neat, actually. What we have is days. Okay, and each day can be made up of who knows how many turns, right? So a day does not end until either all the characters have passed, and or, you know, when you say pass, you are done for the day. You cannot take any more turns. And or there might be other effects that trigger the end of day. So that's how days will go, right? They will start, the players will go through their turns in clockwise fashion. They will keep on going until everybody has passed or an end of day effect has triggered. Okay? So that kind of means you can just keep on going in a day as long as possible until you are forced to end that day. Right, so let's get started with some examples of how this flows, more or less. Now, as I already explained, you've got your Raxxon deck on the right side, but you have your population cards on the left side here. Now, the bottom area is the population draw pile, and this, for the most part, is your population. And or these are all the people that you have not looked at just yet. This game is all about, you know, looking at and investigating people in a crowd and deciding what to do with those people in that crowd. And again, the goal, more or less, is to evacuate 20 to 30 healthy people and get them to the evacuation pile. Another thing to consider is your infection supply over here, okay? So what's kind of neat is the way the population deck works is all of these cards are all population cards, but throughout the course of the game, these decks will kind of bleed into one another. So they've managed to design this in such a way that the infection supply will slowly bleed into the population over time, representing, you know, a zombie apocalypse that continues to get worse. Okay, so on the intro mode, we have already removed a bunch of cards from the game, and we just throw these into the box. They are not a factor at all whatsoever. I'm only going to be doing 3 characters for the most part, and for each day we get to choose which character we are going to be. The day will be over when we pass twice with that character. So I can select Olivia Brown. We can keep going with her. When we pass for the first time, we will get to remove all of the tokens and keep on going. The second time we pass with Olivia, that's it. It's over. Now, the game definitely ends in a loss if the infection supply ever gets too low such that you can't draw from it again, right? So the infection will get worse as these cards bleed into the discard pile. Now, cards end up in the population discard pile for numerous reasons, usually because you've killed that person. Once the day is over, the discard pile goes back into the population draw pile. And like I said, stuff from the infection supply will end up in the discard pile here that will eventually end up back in right here in the draw pile. So as time goes on, we get more and more infected individuals that keep popping up. So let's begin by taking 9 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. The very first thing you do when you start a day is you form your crowd. So when you're playing with 1 to 2 players, you start with the smallest crowd size. It's 9 cards, and you lay them out in a 3x3 grid. Okay, you can see all those. Cool. So we're going to start with Mara Wolf, the journalist. She is the character that we are for this day. And now that we have formed the crowd, well, all we got to do is take an action, an available action as Mara Wolf. Now, I was explaining the tokens are a factor here. Now, each character has an investigate action, which does not require you plopping down any kind of tokens. So the idea is you can always investigate, and when you investigate, you can see there's this little symbol. Okay, it's got a little person with like a curvy arrow. All right, and that's just telling you, yeah, you're gonna have to, when you investigate, you flip a card. All right, so for example, we can just say, all right, investigate, we flip this middle card. So this card is now flipped. That is the action that Meryl took. And this is what we have. We have a hostile card. Now what you can notice is at the bottom of these cards, there's even more symbols. Now what this kind of means is you see this little eye on the left here. That's telling you, all right, here's a condition. If you've got 2 hostile cards that are face up in the crowd, one thing you have to do is flip over another card. Another card gets flipped once you reveal your second hostile card. Once you have your 4th hostile person in the crowd, you can see that's that end of day effect trigger symbol. So once we reveal 4 hostile people in the crowd, it is end of day. And we have to go to that sequence. And we're going to see how that works. But for right now, Meryl did an investigate, and we revealed a hostile person in the center of the crowd. Okay. So, thanks to the fact that we just did an investigate, and we don't have any tokens yet on Meryl's sheet, there are no consequences that we need to trigger if we want Meryl to go again. So let's do another action that requires us to put down a token, and we're going to see how that works. We'll have her do an interview. This is kind of a neat thing that Meryl can do, since, she's a journalist. I can take one of these tokens and plop it down here on interview. And this now means I get to do this action. And it says, pick up and look at a face down card in the crowd If the card is infected or hostile, return it face down. Otherwise, return it face up, and you may repeat this action's effects on an adjacent face down card. And this is kind of neat because we can use this to sort of check which other cards are hostile and or infected without really triggering their results. Okay, so we'll look at the one to the right of the center card. And it turns out to be this card. We have a familiar healthy person, Forest Plum, and the condition on the bottom is just saying if this card dies and or is killed for any reason, the active player must pass their next turn this day. All right. So that's what's going on there. So since we did an investigate and it was not hostile and or infected, we get to flip over another adjacent card. And so adjacent cards are, of course, cards that are right next to, you know, the card in question. So above, below, to the left, to the right, not diagonal, and not like one space over, because sometimes you remove rows and you have like a space in the crowd somewhere, right? So we now get to flip over, I guess, the top card, the one above Forest Plum, and we find out that it is another healthy card. We have an innocent card, and this one has a similar condition. If this card dies for whatever reason, you have to draw a Raxxon card. That's what that symbol means. And Raxxon cards, as you might remember, are like the random events that could potentially trigger if you meet certain conditions on the board here. And that's what's kind of neat, is that like beyond the draw pile, you have two other areas here, much like with the population. So you would have untriggered Raxxon pile and a triggered Raxxon pile. And anything in the untriggered Raxxon pile could trigger later if the conditions become true later on. So as the game progresses, there are more things that you will have to check as the day goes on and you do more stuff. Okay, so yeah, we just did some stuff as Meryl Wolf, and now we're going to go to the next turn, which means Meryl now has to trigger at least one consequence here if she wants to do another turn. She could pass, and that would allow us to like dump this token and start fresh again. But since we only get to pass twice before the end of the day, it'd be kind of weird to do that, wouldn't it? So yeah, what we're gonna do is trigger the consequence, which is basically just flip a card. So we have to start the turn by flipping any one of these cards. So we'll flip the card to the left of the hostile card, and we get susceptible. All right, so this person is susceptible. We've got hostile and familiar. These are all healthy cards. So what we could do now, we are now allowed to do an action after triggering this consequence. What we could do is an evacuation. We can now place another token down on evacuation, and this would allow us to take all three of these healthy cards in the middle row here. We pick them all up, and we put them in the evacuation pile at the top. So that's us having saved three healthy people and putting them in the evacuation zone. So that's pretty cool. We just did that. All right. But now we have two consequences that will need to be triggered if we want to do another turn. And so we can see this new consequence is also flip a card face up. So there are 2 cards that we're going to need to flip face up before we even start our next turn. And as we already saw, some of those cards might require us to do things as we flip them face up. So we'll flip over this one in the bottom right corner. That is a hostile card. All right, so we don't do anything just yet. We'll flip over this card next to the hostile card. That is a chaotic card. So this is an infected card. Probably one of the worst infected cards. And we can see if you even just have one of these, there's already a trigger that you have to do. So when you see this little plus symbol next to the person, that means we add another card face down from the population file. Population draw pile, I should say. All right. So we triggered the consequences by flipping these 2 cards, and the chaotic card required us to add another card from the population draw pile. Now that we've done the consequences, we can choose an action. Okay, so what is that action? Probably we should just do another investigate. Although besides, let's see, Meryl's options for the most part, you can always investigate, you can always evacuate, you can always do some type of attack, which ends up killing cards. What's kind of interesting is each character, these things tend to work a little bit differently, the attack. So for example, Merylwolf has the conflicted airstrike for her attack, and that works in a certain way and has certain consequences. But Olivia Brown has a medicinal attack, and that works a little bit differently and has more or less the same consequences. So there's that. We can quarantine. So for an attack, you're killing cards. For a quarantine, you're putting infected cards into one of the quarantine areas. With an evacuation, of course, you take healthy cards and put them into the evacuation pile. Each character has like a special thing. For Meryl, that's interview. And then there's also a crowd control action, which allows you to switch 2 cards in the crowd. So we could do that. And of course, you would want to do that to try and get like a row, like we saw earlier, of healthy cards that we could all just snatch up with an evacuation and put in the evacuation zone. So yeah, as we can see, this is definitely one of those games that is fairly easy to learn and pick up. It's not super duper complicated with lots of components and whatnot. However, it's also a little difficult to master. There is something to it, and I really do love games like this, where it's easy to pick up and understand, not much to it. You can get through it pretty quickly once you get the hang of it, but there's a lot of ins and outs as well that can make things pretty challenging. Because I did one test game before I did this game, and I definitely did just barely lose that game on intro, on the intro difficulty. So this game definitely can be a bit challenging. Anyway, all right, so we now have an action that we can do because we did the consequences. What is the action? We might as well just do an investigate. We will flip the center card and see what it is. That is a healthy card. Says familiar. Okay, that is what that is. Cool. So now, if we want to take another turn, we have to do our consequences, which means we have to flip over 2 more cards. So we'll flip over the one on top of the familiar here. That's innocent. All right, we have our second innocent card. Now we can flip over another one next to that innocent card. It is another familiar card. Okay. So at this point, what we could do is another evacuation. Now the problem is, if we do our second evacuation, since we've already done one, we will have to put down another token, and that will mean we won't be able to, first of all, it will mean we won't be able to do evacuate again until we pass and clear all these tokens. We also have a symbol here for the consequence. It says move a hostile card from the evacuation pile to the population discard pile. Now, as you might recall, this is a consequence that will get triggered each turn. So each turn, when we want Meryl to do another thing, we're going to have to remove a hostile card from the evacuation pile into the population discard pile. So that's kind of interesting. It means the hostile people will potentially escape from your evacuation zone every now and again, and some of your progress will be lost. But I think we are going to do this. We are going to do an evacuation because we do have this row here of people that we can put in the evacuation pile. Now, we don't trigger these consequences just yet. This consequence will trigger at the beginning of our next turn. So if we want to do another action without passing, that's how we get the consequences. And as you may recall, we can pass twice before we have to end the day. And at this point, we only have 4 more cards on the map. So if we wanted to do another action without passing, we would have to flip over this remaining card, and we would also have to take at least 1 card out of the evacuation pile if there's a hostile person in there. And I think we have 1 hostile person so far, so that person would escape if we do another action without passing. So I don't know. I think we might pass. If we pass, we get rid of all these tokens. And then we can do another turn fresh. We won't have any consequences to trigger. So that means we can just do an investigate and flip this card. And this card is a carrier. Okay. All right, so we have these 4 cards left. Okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. Let's do persuasive crowd control, first of all. And that means we will get to switch this carrier with this familiar. Now, if we do that... Let me see, hold on a second. We could... switch that one and that one. Or this one and that one. Yeah, let's do it like this. If we switch this, we now have a row of infected. That's a row. So now we can do another turn where we basically don't need to trigger the consequence because there are no face down cards anymore. But then we can do a conflicted airstrike. We will have to put a consequence there, and that will allow us to take out these two infected cards right here. Boom. They are gone. And now if we want to do another turn, we're going to need to A, add a new card from the population pile, and B, flip it over, because that was one of the consequences. All right. I guess what we could do now is a quarantine to get rid of this volatile card. Because the quarantine says move up to 2 face-up infected cards from the crowd and or the uncontained quarantine pile to the contained quarantine pile. There is also a question mark on the bottom here. So what's kind of neat about this is if we do this, we definitely do this part on the top here, but you could choose to move one additional card. You would just need to draw a Raxxon card for that. Okay. So let's see. We did the crowd control and conflicted airstrike. And now we're going to do a quarantine, which means we can take this card and put it in the contained quarantine. And we definitely wanted to do that because, as you can see on this card, just one volatile infected is fine. But if we were to flip over one more, that germ symbol means that we have to add one card from the infection supply to the discard pile. So the infection will get worse if we have too many volatiles on the map at the same time. Okay, so we did that. If we want to go again, we need to do these triggers, which means, first of all, add one card. And then for the second one, we need to add another card. And we need to draw from the Raxxon pile. So here's our first Raxxon card. And this is how they tend to work. So you've got your title, and then you have your trigger at the top. And the trigger says, if Brian Lee is in the game, Raxxon's power is 3 or lower, and the player who controls Brian has not passed. Okay, so Brian Lee is not in the game because we just have Katie James, Olivia Brown, and Meryl Wolf to choose from. So this kind of means we take this card, and for now, we're just going to put it in triggered to represent the fact that it can't be triggered because Brian Lee isn't in the game. All right, so pretty much nothing happened there. And the last thing we need to do is flip over one of the cards that we added. Might as well do the one in the middle here. And so now, once again, we have a row of healthy people. But since we have 2 hostiles, we have to flip another card. So we have to flip this one. We got a chaotic, which means we have to add another card. So here's another card that we add thanks to the chaotic card, and that is how our crowd currently looks. So now we get to take another action, and obviously we're going to go for an evacuation. Because if we do an evacuation now, we get to take all 3 of these cards and put them in the evacuation pile. All right. Meaning, for now, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 cards in the evacuation pile, meaning we just need 11 more and we have beaten the game. The intro version of the game, shall we say. All right, so if we want to do another turn here, because remember, we can pass again, but if we do, we go straight to the end of the day. All right, so let's try and do another turn, because why the heck not? But this will mean we have to trigger the consequences. So the first consequence is flip a card. We get a carrier. All right. So next one is add another card. All right. Added. Then we add another card. And we draw a Raxxon card. Okay, this says the Helper Part 2. If the Helper Part 1 is in the triggered Raxxon pile, and there are 1 or more cards in the uncontained quarantine, well, neither of those are true, so we move this to the untriggered Raxxon pile. So this could be true at a certain point, and we'll have to try and keep checking that. And then we also see there are some, at the bottom of this card, there are some consequences. So, and you can see 2 germ symbols. So that means, like, if this becomes true, 2 people get infected, and we have to move 2 cards from the infection supply to the population discard pile. Okay? So basically, the longer you drag the day out, like, the higher the chances are that some bad stuff is going to happen, because more consequences keep on triggering and changing things up. So, yeah, we pulled that Raxxon card. So the last thing to do is to flip over another card. We might as well flip over this one. And we can see it's chaotic. So we have to add another card. Might as well put one right here. Okay. Now we have another row of infected. Oh, we actually have to add 2 cards. When you have 2 chaotic, you add 2 cards, not just 1. And if we were to flip a third one, we can see the end of day symbol. So 3 chaotics face up in the crowd ends the day. So I think we want to do another conflicted airstrike, which means we kill all cards in 1 row or 1 column of the crowd. The chosen row or column may not include face-up healthy cards, and it doesn't. These are all infected cards. We are going to do that action and kill all of them and put them in the discard, population discard pile. All right, so that happened. So now we just have this bottom row for now. But once again, if we want to do another turn, we have to trigger all of these consequences. Now, if we were to pass, we would get rid of all these tokens, but we would have to go to the end of the day, which means we would have to flip over all of these cards, and we would kind of have to take the consequences. So, like, basically, if these end up being all infected cards, that means the infection will get worse by that much. We get 3 infected cards, we put them back in the discard pile, and we take 3 cards from the infection supply, and we put it all back into the population draw pile to start another day. And that's how that works. So we can either do that, or we can trigger all of these consequences here so that we can then do another thing. So let's do that. We're going to start by flipping 1 card. We get hostile. Okay. So then we also need to add 2 more cards. Okay. Next consequence is add yet another card and draw a Raxxon card. So this one says Conspiracy Part 1. If Raxxon's power is 2 or more, which it isn't, and there are 1 or more non-hostile healthy cards face up in the crowd, that's also not true. Okay. And we might as well check this other one real quick. This says, yeah, if the helper part 1, which it isn't. All right, so neither of these cards triggers. And then the final consequence is flipping a card. So we're going to flip this card next to the hostile person, and we get a celebrity. Okay. So we almost have yet another row of healthy people here. So I don't know. We might try doing the interview thing. Because remember, if we say, all right, let's do the interview action, we can then flip this card and see that it's volatile. So we get to leave it face down. And we get to remember this is a volatile card. So we don't want to flip this unless we absolutely have to. That one's a volatile. Let's try to avoid that one. Okay, so we discovered that, but if we want to keep going, once again, we've got to do all of these consequences. So let's do it again. Let's flip. Let's see. We would have to flip 3 cards. So we could do all the ones on the top here and avoid this one, but there might be more stuff up here. Who the heck knows? We'll start by flipping this one. That is our second volatile. No, wait, no, that is our first volatile that is actually face up. If we were to get another one, then the infection worsens and we have to put one from the infection supply into the discard pile. All right. So now we add 2 more cards. 1, 2. And then there's also add plus Raxxon card. Optimism. So optimism triggers if there are no infected cards or hostile cards face up in the crowd. That is not true. We have a hostile and a volatile card. And yeah, so none of these untriggered Raxxon cards are true yet, so we don't trigger any of those. And then we have to flip over one of these cards and then another card. So we'll flip over this one. Hey, all right. So since we got our second hostile card, we need to flip over yet another card. So we flip over this one. That is our third hostile card. Okay. So we might as well do another evacuation. This is our second evacuation, and we can take out this row of people and put them into the evacuation pile. Okay. So we've done that, and I'd say we might as well pass. Because if we can't do another evacuation, and if we do another turn, we will lose one of our evacuated people. So we might as well just say pass and end this day. And if we do that, that means we have at least one volatile card here, and we don't know what these are, so we will have to see how much worse the infection gets after we pass. So the first thing we do is we flip over all the cards. We have another hostile. We have chaotic. And we have volatile. All right, so we don't trigger the effects on these cards. All we're doing here is counting how many infected cards we have in both the population of the crowd and also the uncontained quarantine. Okay, so what happens now is this. Since we have 3 infected cards in the crowd, we have to take 3 cards from the infection supply. And like I was talking about earlier, these get seeded into the discard pile, which will get seeded into the main population draw pile. Okay, so now we take the rest of these cards from the crowd, and we also put them in the discard pile. We shuffle that discard pile a little bit, and then we shuffle it into the population draw pile as a whole. Meaning we have a few more infected cards to deal with now. So that's not great. We have a few more cards to deal with now, and since we had to take 3 cards from the infection supply, and I know that we start with 9 cards in there, we only have 6 cards left in the infection supply to draw from before we have lost the game. So we're not doing too bad here, I suppose. Because that was just our first day, and we already have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We already have 12 cards in the evacuation pile. All right. So after clearing the crowd and checking for how much worse the infection gets. So here, check it out. Yeah, you do the crowd, the infection spreads, the population, shuffle the crowd, uncontained quarantine, and population discard pile all into the population draw pile. Then ongoing containment, move all cards in contained quarantine to uncontained quarantine, and clear the character sheets. Then the day is over, and you can start another day. So we switch this 1 volatile card to the uncontained quarantine, and we also get rid of all of these activation tokens from Meryl Wolf's card. And thanks to the fact that this is solo, in theory, we could just be Meryl Wolf again if we wanted. But I figure, why the heck not? We'll try somebody else. We will switch from Meryl Wolf to Olivia Brown, the doctor. She is our current active character. All right. So now we can just start another day, all fresh-like and whatnot. We need to get more people in that evacuation pile, and we need to do it before the infection gets too bad. All right, so here we go. Where is my coffee? What the heck? Hold the phone, y'all. I gotta get some more coffee. Okay, here we are again. All right, so we're going to start our second day here with Olivia Brown. And so what that means is, once again, we take the population draw pile. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We take 9 cards off the top of that. And then we form our crowd for the day, which is once again going to be a 9x9 grid. Okay. So we have our crowd now. And now Olivia gets to choose what action she would like to take. And obviously, we're going to start with an investigate. Because what's interesting is, in theory, I could do any one of these other actions, despite the fact that we have no idea who or what any of these people are. Right? So we could do an evacuation to one of these rows, despite the fact that we don't know who any of these people are in this row. You could do an attack or what have you, and blah, blah, blah. Although, at the same time, some of these things, skilled quarantine, say move up to 3 face-up infected cards. So you literally can't do this until you have some face-up infected cards, right? But in general, yeah, it's best to know what you're dealing with here. We're going to start with the center card. We're going to do an investigate. That is a volatile card. Okay. So if we get one more of these, the infection worsens. And we could just do another investigate, or we could do a medicinal attack, which will kill this hostile card. We could do that. It just says kill 1 card in the crowd. It doesn't even have to be face up. Why the hell not? We'll do that. We'll start with a medicinal attack. Put a token there. Get rid of this volatile card. So that means on the next turn, we have to add another card. That is a consequence. And then we can flip the center card and see it's another volatile. Great. Okay. Well, we did investigate. So as usual, now we need to suffer the consequences if we want to do another turn, and of course we do. So we have to add another card. That is one consequence. And we can do another investigate. Now wait a minute, hold the phone. Olivia's special thing is experimental treatment. Well, that's kind of cool. She can move all cards of one type, chaotic, volatile, etc., from the uncontained quarantine pile. Oh, okay. Uncontained quarantine pile to the contained quarantine pile. Skilled quarantine, move up to 3 face-up infected cards from the crowd, and or... Oh, that's kind of cool. She is really... Olivia's specialty is quarantining infected cards, apparently. Okay, so... What action do we do? I kind of think... Yeah, we'll just do an investigate. That's what we were about to do. We're going to investigate this bottom card. Susceptible. We have a healthy card down here. All right. So one more turn equals one more person that we have to put down. And we might as well do another flipperoonie. We'll do an investigate. We'll investigate this card. And this is chaotic, which means we'll need to add yet another card from the population pile. Okay. So there's that. Okay. So let's do another turn. We have to add another card. That's the consequence being triggered. Now the way this works is you cannot have a crowd that is more than a 6x6 grid. So we cannot have rows and columns that are more than 6 cards. So at a certain point we kind of run out of room here and whatnot. Okay, but we added another card. That was the consequence. Which card do we investigate now? So we could do a skilled quarantine and get rid of both of these cards by putting them into the contained quarantine pile. We could do that. Because the issue is if we flip over another card and it's a chaotic or a volatile, we're going to suffer some consequences from that. Or we could get rid of both of these right now. That is one of 3 skilled quarantines that we can do before we pass. But we would have more consequences to deal with once we do that. Choices, choices, choices. But I don't know, screw it. I think we'll just do that. We'll say skilled quarantine, and that means we can get rid of these 2 infected cards and put them in contained quarantine. Okay. So that means if we want to do another turn, we can add 2 more cards. Add. And we also need to draw a Raxxon card. And this one says Volatile Mutation. If there are 1 or more volatile infected cards face up in the crowd, and there are not anymore because we put them in quarantine. So we're good on this one. I've been forgetting to check these other ones. Helper Part 1, we haven't run into that yet. Raxxon's power is not that high. This one, Optimism, though, if there are no infected cards or hostile cards face up in the crowd, and this one is currently true, so this does get triggered. That means we got to read the rest of it and see what it says. Optimism. It's been a long time since you felt like things were under control, but at this very moment, you're not pepper spraying a panicked citizen or fending off a horde of infected. Maybe everything will be okay? Question mark? All right, so as we can see, we have 2 options here, and each option is going to have some immediate consequences. So option 1, you get your guitar and sing a song of joy to the crowd. Your off-key ditty attracts hecklers. So we can do that, and that means we have to flip 3 cards. Or you buy popsicles and pass them out for free. People greedily gobble them up, but everyone agrees ice cream sandwiches would have been better. Cool. That means we just add 2 more cards. So I don't know. We'll do option 2. Because that means instead of flipping a whole bunch of cards at once, and who knows what's going to happen with that, we just add 2 more cards. And now we only have 1 more card in the population draw pile. That means once that is empty, I think nothing happens. Yeah, because we don't form a new draw pile from the discard pile, I don't think. Not until the end of the day. But okay, so those were the consequences. Yep. So we might as well just do an investigate here. Which one should we do? Now let's do an investigate here. We'll flip this card. Chaotic. So that means we get 1 more card. Just put that card right there. Okay. All right, so that's what happened. Now we need to do consequences again. We can't put down any new cards, but we can draw another Raxxon card. So what does this one say? The innocent part 1. If an innocent, healthy card is face up in the crowd, and it isn't, so this is not true. We do not have one or more volatile. Helper part 1 is not in the triggered pile. Let's see. Yeah, none of these trigger just yet. All right. So what action do we want to do now? Might as well just do another investigate. Flip that one, and it's hostile. Okay. All right, so since we can't add any more cards, we just draw a Raxxon card. Let me just double check real quick. If during the turn whenever a game effect triggers this action, draw the top card of the population draw pile without looking at it. The player adding blah 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 blah. That's the player. If the population draw pile is empty, shuffle the population discard pile to form a new population draw pile. If both are empty, nothing happens. Okay, so nothing happens just if there is no population discard pile. So this card does get added to that for the first add, and the second add means we add this, which we know is a volatile, to the crowd, and then we have to pull another Raxxon card. And the Raxxon card says susceptibility. If a healthy susceptible card is face up in the crowd, which it is, every day the sickness seems to spread faster. Raxxon is offering samples of an experimental vaccine for those susceptible to the virus's airborne form, but so we have two choices here. Option 1, taking a chance on another Raxxon drug isn't worth it. Kill a face-up susceptible card, then place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the triggered Raxxon pile. So that means we kill this susceptible person, and I think on top of that, this card goes in the untriggered Raxxon pile, which means the next time we have a face-up susceptible person, we have to make this choice again. And then furthermore, it has that infection effect on the bottom, so we are going to have to put another card in the discard pile from the infection supply. Or option 2, Raxxon to the rescue. It seems to have slowed down the spread. Place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the... Oh gosh, really? Oh wow. So this means every single time a susceptible card gets flipped, we're going to have a choice. No. Place this card in the untriggered. So this card never actually truly gets triggered, even if it does get triggered. That's cool. All right. So we have to put this in the untriggered, and we're going with option 2, which means we just increase Raxxon's power. Raxxon's power has been increased to 1 since we relied on them for their goofy drug. So that doesn't make the infection worse, but it does lend them some more power. Okay. So that happened. So if we want to do another turn, we have to do some more consequences. We literally cannot do any more ads now. So all we can do is just draw another Raxxon card to see what happens. So this card always triggers. As the chaos around you unfolds, your head spins with visions of a horrifying future. Raxxon rule or the death of humanity? Which is worse? Shuffle the untriggered Raxxon pile into the Raxxon draw pile. Okay, that's cool. Remember to put this card in the triggered Raxxon pile. Then move cards from the contained quarantine to the uncontained quarantine according to the player count. All right, so basically this card triggers, and we get to take all the untriggered cards, and rather than having to check to see whether they are true as well, we get to put them back in the Raxxon draw pile. I'm just going to seed them back in there. All right, but we also have to move these cards that we put into quarantine, contained quarantine, into uncontained quarantine. So we now have 3 infected cards in uncontained quarantine. And I believe at the end of the day, those count for the infection spreading. Yep. Which is not great. That means if we ended the day right now, we would have 4 out of 6 cards that are left in the infection supply. Oh boy. Well, that's what happened. But we now get to take an action since we did those consequences. And now that I think about it, Olivia has the unique ability of moving, let's see, infected cards from uncontained quarantine to contained quarantine. We could do that. We could do skilled quarantine. That would mean we could move up to 3 face-up infected cards from the crowd and or uncontained quarantine pile to the contained quarantine pile, and we could even move an additional card. So I think we've got 3 in uncontained, and we also have 1 face-up card in the crowd. We could move all that to contain quarantine for the price of putting down another token and also drawing an additional Raxxon card. And I think we're going to do that. So we put another token down on skilled quarantine, and that means we can shift all of this stuff back to contained quarantine and put this one back in there as well. All right. So that happened. We did that. We just need to also draw another Raxxon card to see what that says. And this says Raxxon's Lies. So this card always triggers. We have the very best quarantine facility, you are told at a volunteer meeting. We're getting a lot of credit for how great it is. Many people are saying that. Shuffle the untriggered Raxxon pile, which we already did that. Then move card. No. Okay, it says 1 to 2 players only move 1 card. Okay. So that means the last one was only 1 card too. Meaning there only should have been 1 card in uncontained quarantine. Great. And this will also increase Raxxon's power. So we have to bump up Raxxon's power twice to 3. And we move 1 of these cards back to uncontained quarantine, which is not great. Okay. So now it's time for another turn. And that means we have to do some more consequences here. We can't do any ads, but we can draw even more Raxxon cards. And we have to draw 2 of them, thanks to these quarantines that we've done. So the first Raxxon card says Friends Forever Part 2. Part 1 is in the triggered Raxxon pile, which it isn't, so this gets untriggered. And then we pull another Raxxon card that says Brian Lee Part 2. Brian Lee is not in the game, so we just throw this in the triggered pile, and nothing happens. All right, so those were the consequences. We can now, I guess, investigate another card. So what does this one say? That's a carrier. So if we get one more carrier, we have to draw another Raxxon card. If we get 2 more, we have to go straight to the end of the day phase. All right. So 2 more Raxxon cards to do another turn, basically. First one says Volatile Mutation. There are no volatile cards face up in the crowd, so this one is not triggered just yet. Next one says The Screams. If there are 1 or more chaotic cards face up in the crowd, and there are not, so this does not happen just yet. We've drawn those. Okay. So what do we do now? Let's investigate this card. And that is volatile. Okay, we have a volatile face up in the crowd. All right. That means if we do another turn, we're going to have a card that will trigger and even more Raxxon cards to draw. I think we may need to do that. Because I think if we just call it a day now, we're almost certainly going to lose the game. Except we won't really. Because we have 6 in the infection supply. And it says you only take a max of 4 from there. So we could end the day right now. How many do we have in the evacuation pile? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, we still got 12, so we still need 8 more. So we need to do some more evacuations before we consider ending the day. So yeah, we're just going to have to take it. We're going to have to take another Raxxon card and see what it says. Unruly. If there's 2 or more hostile cards face up in the crowd, and there's not, there's only 1. So this does not trigger yet. And Meryl Wolf Part 1. She is not currently selected. Although it does say if Meryl Wolf is in the game and there are 2 or more hostile cards, there's only 1. So we'll say she's in the game, but we need another hostile card before this triggers. Now, we do have this Volatile Mutation card, which I think will trigger now, because we do have a volatile card face up in the crowd, and that means we now need to make a decision, since this triggers. 1 or more volatile, yes. The sight of these wretches has always made you want to vomit, but they are somehow getting worse. The oozing pus, the swirling flies, oh God, the smell. Whew. All right, so option 1, place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the triggered Raxxon pile, and that will worsen the infection. And if we get another volatile, it'll happen again. Or option 2, you relent. Only Raxxon can make these things disappear. Move all face-up volatile cards to the contained quarantine. Okay, so we can do that, and that sounds good, but it's going to increase Raxxon's power once again, which will put it up to 4, which means we're halfway to losing the game if Raxxon's power goes all the way up to 8. But yeah, I think we're going to do that so that we can move this to the triggered one. We take the volatile and put that in contained quarantine, and we also have to increase Raxxon's power by 1. Okay, so those are the consequences that we triggered. Now, we could do another investigation, I suppose. Let's investigate over here. That's chaotic. It says to add, and we can't do that, so we don't add anything. All right. Well, let's draw 2 more Raxxon cards to do another turn. This one says injection. If Raxxon's power, it sure is. It's up to 2. Injection. You report to the quarantine facility for duty. New policy, you're told. Everyone working here has to get an injection of solution 59B17. You know, for safety. Okay, so option 1 is no, you're not injecting me with anything. The player who drew this card may not use quarantine actions for the rest of the day. Place this card in the untriggered pile instead of the triggered pile. Okay. And or this is going to trigger again for next turn. Or we say, sure, I guess, if it's for safety, but that bumps us up to 5. But this goes away and it doesn't come back again. So I don't know. I think we'll do that. I guess we'll take the shot. We're up to 5 now. And we should probably... Okay, I think that was the first card that we drew, and we need to draw 1 more. Mom Part 2. If an infected card is face up in the crowd and Mom Part 1 is in the triggered Raxxon pile, which I don't think it is, no. So we would put this one in the untriggered pile for now. Werewolf, 2 or more hostile. Okay, this screams. We do have 1 chaotic card now, so this one also triggers. This says... the inhuman screams are driving you to the brink of insanity. You would do anything to stop them, no matter who it would hurt. So option 1, add a card to the crowd for each face-up chaotic card currently in the crowd. Place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the triggered Raxxon pile. Option 2, kill every face-up chaotic card in the crowd and every card adjacent to a chaotic card. Place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the... Either way, this doesn't actually trigger, and it will trigger once again every time we get another chaotic card. So we can either... We can't add a card because there are no cards to add. Or we could kill this chaotic card and the other 2 cards that are by it. So I think we kind of have to do that. And it says to still put this in untriggered anyway. So we kill chaotic, but we also kill this hostile card and another hostile card. So those are two healthy people that we could have rescued that are in the discard pile now. At the very least, they were not innocent people whose death would trigger a bad thing. So there's that, I guess. Okay. All right. So now we get to do some more investigation. Let's see here. Let's investigate this one. And it's volatile. All right. So nothing else happens there. It's just another volatile card. And do we still have... Yeah, that volatile thing is not in untriggered, so nothing triggers. All right. Let's do another turn. Let's draw 2 more Raxxon cards and see what else happens. So first Raxxon card says Thomas Hart. He is not in the game, so we're just throwing this out and nothing happens. The next one says Meryl Wolf Part 2. So what's Meryl Wolf Part 1? 2 or more hostile cards. We don't have that yet. So Meryl Wolf Part 1 has to trigger before Meryl Wolf Part 2 will trigger. And there are 1 or more cards in quarantine. Alright. So if we get another hostile card, that Meryl Wolf card is going to trigger. So let's do another investigate. Experimental treatment move. Skilled quarantine. We could do skilled quarantine to get rid of volatile and the carrier. Could also do medicinal attack to kill both of these. We would just have to draw yet another Raxxon card to do that. Or we could just do a plain old investigate. Let's do a plain old investigate for now. So that's another carrier. So that's 2 carriers. And that kind of means we are going to need to draw another Raxxon card. And this one says Mom Part 1. If there is at least 1 carrier card in quarantine, and there isn't. There are no carrier cards in quarantine. So this one does not trigger just yet. But I think we have Mom Part 2 in untriggered. So we have a couple of 2-parters that are going to potentially trigger if something occurs here. Let's check the other ones. We don't have more than 1 hostile person. We don't have any chaotic cards face up in the crowd. And yeah, so we're good. Okay. So that was the thing we did. We did another investigate. Now, if we want to do another turn, we're going to have to draw 2 more Raxxon cards. So we're going to have to do that. First Raxxon card says Friends Forever Part 1. If a familiar card is face up in the crowd, nope, we do not have familiar, so that goes there. Nothing happens for now. The Helper Part 1. If a non-hostile healthy card is face up in the crowd, susceptible, and there are one or more cards in the uncontained quarantine, which there is. We have this chaotic card in uncontained. So this triggers. It says, look, mister, I'm healthy. I want to save this city just like you. Jeepers, wouldn't it be better for me to help than to leave? So we now have two options. Option one, you gotta admit that for a kid, he's pretty good at this. Right this way, Mr. Infected Sir. Immediately move up to 4 cards in the uncontained quarantine to the contained quarantine. Yeah. I don't see why we wouldn't do that. Yep. Option 2, you know Raxxon wouldn't like outsiders interfering. Kid, let the professionals do their job, okay? Place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the triggered. Why would I do this? Option 1 says this gets triggered and we just put that uncontained card into the contained quarantine. So yeah, let's just do that. Triggered, that goes there. Okay, now actually that was the helper part 1. Let's check, do we have the helper part 2 in here? We do not. We do not. However, if the helper part 2 ends up, there may be some consequences for that down the road. Okay. So we looked at the 2 Raxxon cards. Which card should we flip over now? Let's investigate this one. Okay, this is hostile. We now have 2 hostile cards on the map, which means we need to flip over another one. Flip over this one, and that's volatile. That means we now have our second volatile card on the map, which means the infection worsens. We have to put 1 infection card in the discard pile. Okay. Now, what we could do is this. What we could do is a card swap. Let's see. We have this susceptible person over here, and this hostile person down here. We could switch this hostile person at the bottom with this carrier over here by using the crowd control action. I think I'm going to do that. So crowd control, we switch this hostile with this carrier. That happened. And we now have a row of mostly infected cards here. So what we might do... Oh, that's right. With this character, medicinal attack does not get a whole row. Although... Let's see. Skilled quarantine... Okay, actually, hold the phone. Instead of doing this, we could do skilled quarantine, and that would get rid of these 4 cards. We would just have a lot of Raxxon cards that we would need to draw next time. We would get rid of all of these infected cards here. That's what we would do. Okay. So yeah, let's do that. We'll do our final skilled quarantine until we pass, because we can pass once. Skilled quarantine means we can get rid of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Put them all into contained quarantine. And then we would have to draw an additional... Okay, we get the spokesperson part 2. The spokesperson part 1 is in the triggered Raxxon pile, which it isn't, I don't think. Nope. All right. Cool. So we did that. So what we might do now is our first pass to get rid of all of these tokens, because we have a bunch of them piled up on skilled quarantine here. We still have 2 evacuations that we could do, but if we do another turn to trigger all these consequences, that's 3 Raxxon cards that we kind of have to draw. So I'm thinking we should pass, get rid of these tokens, and now we can just do a plain old investigate. We'll investigate this one. This is a susceptible card. Okay. So what we could do now is do a crowd control action that would allow us to swap the position of any 2 cards in the crowd. Hold the phone here for just a moment, y'all. Okay, so basically I was trying to figure out, like, if I do crowd control, it would be neat if I could just take these 2 cards that are kind of off to the side here and move them into the one space over so that we can just evacuate this whole row. But see, all it's saying is swap the position of any 2 cards in the crowd. I'm assuming that means you pick 1 card and then another card and swap those 2. Right? So I don't know if that really helps us get a row here. I mean, we could just do crowd control and swap like one of these susceptibles with one of these cards up here. Let's just do an investigate. Okay, we'll do an investigate. This is a carrier. Okay. All right. Check Raxxon real quick. Mom part 1 says if there is at least 1 carrier card in quarantine, and there is now. There's 2 of them in quarantine. All right, so this one triggers. There are also and there are 2 plus hostile cards. Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff that happens. First of all, Mom Part 1. If there is at least one carrier in card in quarantine, which there is, it says, Mom, is that you? Sweetie, you've got to get me out of here, honey. You know I'm not one of them. Don't turn your back on your own mother. Option 1. Here, hurry, get out of here. You can help her escape. Move a carrier card from quarantine to the population discard pile. Okay. Option 2. Sorry, Mom, but it's for your own good. Raxxon will help. Place this card in the untriggered... Nope. We are just going to trigger this. We take one carrier, move them out of quarantine into the population discard pile. Because otherwise, we'd have to increase Raxxon's power even more, and it's already at 5. Okay, so there was that. But there's also Unruly. It says if there are 2 or more hostile cards face up in the crowd, which there are at this point, it says, what do we want? Freedom. When do we want it? Now. The crowd is no longer just upset. They're organized. You empathize, but it's not going to be easy to control them without Raxxon's chemical resources. Option 1. All players must place 1 action token on an open space next to their crowd control action. Okay, that's not terrible. Option 2. Use pepper spray, the new stuff we just made, technically non-lethal. Thanks, Raxxon. You may turn all hostile cards in the crowd face down. Nope, I think we're doing the other one. All players must place 1 action token on an open space next to their crowd control action. Let's just do that. We'll say this has been triggered, and we have to put a token down on crowd control now. So there's that. Let's see. Mom Part 1 also triggered. Do we have Mom Part 2? We do. If an infected card is face up in the crowd, and we do have a carrier in the crowd, and Mom Part 1 card is in the triggered Raxxon pile, which it is, this one triggers now as well. It says, Gerp, honey, come to Mama. She lurches towards you, eyes sunken, skin a sea of leaking boils. The player who last triggered the Mom Part 1 card makes the following choice. Option 1. The choice is difficult but straightforward. You kill her. Depression sets in. Kill a face-up infected card in the crowd. You must pass your next turn. So that means end of day if we kill that card in the crowd. Or, Mom, no, please, I can't do it. You walk away. Place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the triggered Raxxon pile, and we get the infection symbol. So it's either end of day, and we probably we're going to get at least one more card, because we have a carrier here. All the rest of the cards are in contained quarantine. We don't know what the other 3 are, so we could get anywhere from 1 to 3 extra infected cards here if we end the day. And I kind of think we're going to do that. I kind of think we might as well end the day here. So we're going to do that. All right, we're going to say we have to pass, which means the day ends. So this has been triggered. And we kill a face-up infected card in the crowd, which means this one is just gone and it will not count, but the day has ended. All right, so when the day ends, we do need to flip all the rest of the cards here. Hostile, chaotic, All right, so we only have one chaotic in the crowd. So that's one more card that we put on the population discard pile. All right. So let's see here. Crowd. Flip all remaining cards. Let's see. Count total infected cards in the crowd and uncontained quarantine. Nothing in uncontained quarantine. We just have this one. So that means we take one card, put that on that discard pile, take the rest of the cards in the crowd here. We form a new population draw pile. All right, we shuffled that. We got a new population draw pile. We have to switch all these infected from the contained quarantine to uncontained quarantine. We get rid of that token on Olivia Brown, and we're going to switch her up with Katie James. And Katie James is going to be our character for this turn. And we're going to try to win the game in this turn. We're going to try to. Let's see what happens here. Okay. Gotta take 9 more cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Cool. Form the crowd. It's a 3x3 grid. All right, we got a new day here. Katie James, we got a new day. So first of all, we do an investigate. We're going to start with the middle card. Boom, that's hostile. Okay. And then we still have some of these untriggered Raxxon cards that we're going to check. We don't have a familiar card face up in the crowd. We don't have 2+ hostile cards face up in the crowd, or chaotic cards face up in the crowd. Friends Forever Part 1. Is that in triggered? Nope. Spokesperson Part 1 is in the triggered. Nope. Okay. None of these Raxxon cards trigger. So we can now do another action. So KD has some slightly different actions. So instead of skilled quarantine, we have steady quarantine. Move up to 3 face-up infected cards from the crowd and or uncontained. All right, so I guess steady quarantine is basically the same thing as skilled quarantine, except we don't have an option to move an additional card for drawing a Raxxon card. But we do also have this Raxxon funding thing, which is a little interesting because we can choose a player other than yourself to remove an action token from their character sheet. Okay. And solo does affect this because when you're doing solo, you're only doing one character at a time anyway. So you're allowed to just do this, but it counts as you passing once. right? So you can use this to remove one token, but it counts as you passing, basically. You're only going to be able to do that twice. Well, really, once, I guess, because you're going to put a token on that space, meaning that's a consequence that you now have to trigger, and you're only going to get rid of that if you pass again. So maybe you can do it twice. Anyway, point is, let's see, we can do another action now. We don't have any consequences to trigger, so let's just investigate another card. The top card here is another hostile card. We now have 2 hostile cards, so that means we have to flip another one. All right. So we now have 3 healthy cards in a row here, which means we are definitely going to do an evacuation for our next thing here. Let's see. Familiar. Werewolf is in the game, and there are 2 or more hostile cards face up in the crowd. We have 2 hostile cards face up in the crowd. We don't have 3, but it says 2 or more. So I guess this one triggers. Meryl meets the so-called rioters in an abandoned house. Then again, I don't know. I don't know if this triggers. Because we aren't currently playing Meryl Wolf. She's in the game, but the solo makes it a little bit different. We're playing Katie James right now. I don't know. I'm going to say this will trigger if we switch back to Meryl Wolf and there are 2 or more hostiles in the crowd face up. We have no chaotic. Yeah, all right. So what we're going to do is just evacuation. We're going to put a token here, evacuation. We're going to take these 3 cards, scoop them up, and throw them in the evacuation pile. And that should mean we only need 3 more cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Well, 15. We have 15 in the evacuation pile. That means we need 5 more to go in that evacuation pile, and then we win. All right, so next turn we have to draw a Raxxon card before we do anything. So here's a consequence. Olivia Brown, part 1. If Olivia Brown is in the game and 1 or more infected cards are face up in the crowd. So this is definitely untriggered. If we go back to Olivia and there are more than 2 affected cards in the crowd, yes, but otherwise no. So we're going to do just a plain old investigate. We'll investigate this card here, and it is chaotic. Okay, and that means we have to add another card. And I think it also means one of these Raxxon cards is going to trigger. It's the Screams. Because this says if there is 1 or more chaotic cards face up in the crowd, and there is, and I think no matter what we choose, this goes back into the untriggered Raxxon pile. So basically, we can add a card to the crowd for each face-up chaotic card currently in the crowd, place this card in the untriggered Raxxon, or we could kill every face-up chaotic card in the crowd and every card adjacent to a chaotic card. All right, so I think we're going to do option 1, because if we kill this chaotic card, we're going to have to kill all 3 cards that are adjacent to it. So we're going to do option 1 for this. And that means we just add another card to the crowd for now. All right. Okay, so I think we're going to do medicinal attack, which means we put a token down here and we get to just sort of kill this chaotic card. And we could also kill all adjacent cards, but we'd have to draw another Raxxon card. And we don't want to kill all adjacent cards because we have no idea what these cards are. Okay, so we did that. Now we have two consequences that we need to do. So we need to draw another Raxxon card. The innocent part 1. If an innocent healthy card is face up in the crowd, it isn't. So this one does not trigger just yet. Neither does anything else, I don't think. All right, and we also have to add another card. So we're going to add another card here. And then our action is going to be to investigate. So we're going to investigate the center card, and it will be hostile. Okay. That is a hostile person there. If we want to do another turn, we have to draw another Raxxon and add another card. So we now have Conspiracy Part 2. If Conspiracy Part 1 card is in front of a player, really, that injection is Conspiracy card Part 1, is it? Well, it's not, so this does not trigger. I don't think anything else does either. Nope. Good on that. We have to add another card. Those are the consequences, and now we get an action. Might as well be yet another investigate. So let's do this card here. We're going to investigate this one, and it's a carrier. Okay. So that happened. Let's see. So let's do another turn. We're going to draw another Raxxon card. This is DNA. If Raxxon's power, it sure is. Raxxon is up to 5. It says, you report to the quarantine facility for duty. New policy, you're told. All those entering the facility must be verified with a finger prick blood sample. Okay, option 1. No, I'm not giving you my DNA, and you're not pricking my finger. The player who drew this card may not use quarantine actions for the rest of the day. Place this card in the untriggered Raxxon pile instead of the triggered Raxxon pile. Which kind of means this gets triggered at the beginning of each turn. Or, sure, I get it, security is important. That will increase Raxxon's power once again. Okay, hold the phone, y'all. Okay, so I just had to check the rules real quick. Sorry about that, y'all. It looks like I've been doing this a little bit wrong. And really what it comes down to is... Oh, great. Which ones did we do? I think we did medicinal attack, I believe. Great. Which two did we do? I don't know. I think we did quarantine as well. I think. I don't know. I don't know. Wait, no. We did evacuation. We did evacuation. And I think we did medicinal attack. Harry jumped on the table and messed everything up. Okay. What I learned, though, is when you draw a Raxxon card from the draw pile, that card will either trigger when you draw it. Harry. Great. He keeps jumping up here. All right, anyway. Raxxon cards will either trigger when you draw it or not. If it does not trigger, it goes in the untriggered Raxxon pile. And apparently, and this makes sense, you don't have to check every single flipping card in the untriggered Raxxon pile every time you do another turn. You just need to check whether the Raxxon card triggers or not when you are supposed to draw it. Although some cards will put the untriggered pile, as we have seen, back into the Raxxon draw pile. So that is how those cards might trigger later on. Okay, so... Alright. Let's do another turn after, I think we were looking at DNA here, and we have to decide which option to do. And with this one, we would have to place this back into the untriggered Raxxon pile if we're doing option 1, which means this could happen again at some point. But the only thing that happens is we can't do quarantine actions for the rest of the day. So we put that there. No quarantine. And yeah. Or you could do option 2, which does effectively get rid of this card. We can still do quarantine stuff, but it would bump Raxxon's power up to 6. So I don't know. Let's just sacrifice quarantine for now. We'll see how that works out so we don't increase Raxxon's power yet again. Okay, so yeah. Oh gosh, I forget where the hell I was. Why was I looking at that Raxxon card? Harry, please stop knocking everything over. Oh my goodness. That was at 5. So we were just looking at that DNA card, which I'm gonna say that means we did one consequence, but we also need to add this card to here, and then we can do something, which is, I would think, another investigate. And here is a hostile card, which means we have 2 hostile cards, and that means we need to flip another one. We have 3 hostile cards. At this point, we can do another evacuation. We can do our second evacuation and get 3 more hostile cards in the evacuation pile. And that will mean we need 2 more cards in there. And it also kind of sort of means we need to pass if we want to do another evacuation to win the game. So we might as well pass with KD James here. We'll get rid of all the tokens, but it means 1 more pass and we have to go straight to the end of the day. All right, so now we're fresh. We don't need to do any more consequences. KD can do another investigate. We will do this one. That is a carrier. Now that we have 2 carriers revealed, we have to draw a Raxxon card and see if that triggers. And this does say KD James, and we are her right now. if Katie James is in the game and she has 2 or more action tokens on her character sheet, which she doesn't, so this does not trigger. We're putting this in untriggered, and we're going to ignore it for now. Okay. All right, so that means we get to do another investigate. And that is this one. We get another hostile over here. Okay. So let's do another investigate, shall we? What's going on with this row? We have a susceptible. Okay. So now let's do one more investigate. Because basically, I think we're almost done here. If we can reveal one more healthy person, we can do a crowd control and an evacuate and get the last 2 cards that we need. So let's do another investigate over here off to the right. And we get our 3rd carrier, which means we have to go straight to end of day. Okay. That's not great. Crap. Well, that's what happens. All right, so since that occurred, says we gotta go straight to the end of the day, which means we get 4 more infection cards. And that is what we have in the infection pile. So all of that gets added to this. And then, let's see, we have to flip all remaining cards. Oh boy. Let's see what's in the draw pile. Wait a minute. We only have... How do we only have 2 healthy cards left and everything else is infected? How many cards do we have here, though? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, we have 18 cards in the evacuation pile. And if we can manage to get these 2 cards in there, we are golden. Okay. So let's cheat a little bit. Let's just cheat a little bit so we can end the game, shall we? We're going to cheat a little bit because this video has gone on long enough. We're going to flip this back. And then we're going to say, since we know... By the way, the game says you can do this. The game says you can count how many cards are in these face-up piles. And if I was being smart, I could have counted this to see that instead of 3 more, we only have 2 more that we need. And here they are. We know they're here. So to win the game, instead of investigating this, what we would do is, first of all, a medicinal attack. And that gets rid of this card. Now for the next turn, we have to add something, which means we have to take the discard pile and reshuffle that. And we have to add another card, where the heck ever. We would probably put it right here. There we go. All right. And then, after having done that, we can do an evacuation Get rid of these two, put them in the evacuation pile, and we're finally done. Hey! It only took 2.5 hours to do the intro version of this game. But hey, we figured some things out here. This probably took a lot longer than it needed to because of my little rant at the beginning and the fact that I didn't quite understand how those Raxxon cards work. So yeah, the game probably flows a little bit better when you're not constantly checking all of the Raxxon cards in the untriggered pile. So kind of messed up there. Hold that phone. All right, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, we checked out Raxxon, which is a very interesting little card party type game where, you know, you're just moving cards around. I guess it's kind of like Zombie Apocalypse Guess Who. If you remember that game, you've got rows of cards and you're trying to like guess who and get the right cards in the right place and blah 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 blah. That's what this game is in a nutshell. The Raxxon cards make it interesting because there are random events that can happen that provide you with choices as to what to do. And of course, you always have choices anyway, even without the Raxxon cards, right? Because you've got those consequences that will sort of trigger every turn, provided you want to do another turn. That's what's kind of interesting too. You can choose to pass and therefore end your turn so that you don't have to trigger any of those consequences. So no consequences, but also no more actions for you to do. And at a certain point, I guess if you were doing multiplayer, your card is going to fill up with those little action tokens, and you're going to have less and less options as to what you can do. And all the while, you will have way more consequences piling up as you do more things. So, yeah, like I said earlier, it's a fairly simple-ish game. It's easy to pick up and learn the basics, but, like, there's also a lot of ins and outs that can make things very challenging, and so it's kind of difficult to master, right? So, yeah, we checked that out. That was pretty cool. That was our first look at Raxxon. We're probably going to mess with this game a little bit more once or twice in the future, but that is our first look. I wanted to check this game out because, as I said, I'm going to be featuring this in my next DSA game night event. So I wanted to put that up on the channel here so people can see what the game is about. If for some reason they're willing to sit through my very long rambly video format where I'm just kind of talking about stuff and it all goes on for hours, doesn't it? Because I'm just playing the game like you normally would without any zany editing stuff like I was talking about at the beginning of the video here. But I guess I wanted to go on that rant at the beginning of the video to explain to y'all why I'm not doing flashy editing type stuff. I'm just trying to go for a genuine vibe here, right? I want this, I guess what I wanted to talk about was, I figure if I do videos this way, the way I'm doing it, it's far more of a natural experience. It's like you're just having a conversation with a person that you know, you're just hanging out with that person and you're playing a game with them. And I figure there's got to be somebody out there that likes that kind of thing, right? I mean, sure, we could make these videos a lot shorter if I edit them and make it all flashy and put memes in and yada, yada, yada. But now it's just not as genuine anymore. You know what I'm talking about? Now it's no longer just you and your friend just playing a game. That's what this channel is supposed to be about. Just playing interesting games with stories and consequences and choices and just seeing how it all plays out in real time. It just so happens that's easier for me as a, as a YouTuber type person, that I can just sort of turn on the record button and just play the game and just kind of throw it up there with minimal effort. But again, nowadays, with all this AI slop, I think it's going to be more important going forward for people to be making stuff like this. Genuine, just, I'm a human being human and just doing something that I like. Here is my process that I am recording for you, the audience, to watch if you so choose. How about we stop rambling? Video's over now for the most part. We're just going to go to the final portion, which is usually, as I said earlier, we're going to rant about politics just a little bit, because my last two plugs that I usually try to talk about is an MDSA link, or rather I should say a DSA link, a link to the DSA home page. Okay, so I am in DSA. If you are a left-leaning person, I recommend you check out DSA. Every video, I try to use this portion to convince people to check out DSA. DSA is a really interesting, cool, I think important organization right now, because this country, America, I should say, is in a really bad position at the moment. And that may be a bit of an understatement. Like, things are really bad now. And I know that depends a great deal on who you ask. I'm sure you can find some people who are convinced that everything is A-okay and it's amazing. And this is, of course, the right-wingers. They're relatively happy now that they basically got everything that they want. But since they don't know what they want, that's right, right-wingers have no idea what anything is. They don't know how anything works. That's what it means to be an American conservative. I'm sorry. If that's you, you have no idea what the hell you're talking about. That's you. So, yeah, the right-wingers are just never going to be happy. They never will. They never will. Never. Things are never going to be good enough for them. And this is mainly because their entire world is constructed out of nothing but pure USA-grade propaganda. Almost nothing they believe is actually real. So, unbeknownst to them, they are just supporting the status quo. They are just supporting the rich people at the top of this hierarchy that they are unaware even exists. Okay, they don't know anything about hierarchies other than they are told they are good and natural and we should have them. So they reinforce this notion of hierarchies on the rest of us. You know, such as the whole white supremacy thing. That is a hierarchy. It's not just like random Klansmen in the South somewhere, okay? It's how our society is organized. It's why you see so many white people in media, and or whiteness is considered to be the default in white supremacy. And whiteness can be applied to anybody. Okay? If you're Clarence Thomas, you're doing whiteness. You get what I'm saying now? Alright? Clarence is the kind of person that is going out of his way to appear to be more, usually you don't hear the term whiteness, okay? You hear like qualified, professional, or good, upstanding citizen or whatever, right? That's what whiteness is. You're doing whiteness, you're trying to appear to be part of the good, respectable portion of the population. And what's funny about all this is technically, when you look like me, you don't really need to do much of anything. You just are white by default for the most part. Now, since whiteness is a performative type of thing, I can choose to perform in such a way that is not whiteness, right? And so if I choose to try and act like Eminem or something like that, then people look at me funny and say, like, why is he acting like he's from the hood or a black person or blah, 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 blah. I'm rambling again, aren't I? All this to say, hey, DSA is actually trying to make this country better. All right? The status quo doesn't care about making this country better. Rich people don't care about very much of anything other than acquiring more wealth. All right? They want more profit. They want more money. They want another yacht. They want another mansion. They don't give a crap about your parents, your grandparents, your cousins, your friends, you. They don't care about anyone that you know, because odds are you are working class just like me, and so is pretty much everybody that you know. Unless you own capital. Do you own a factory? No, you're not a capitalist. Okay? That's what's interesting. If you want to be a socialist, you can just do that. You can just say that you're a socialist. You can join the DSA, get with some other socialists, and try to do a socialism. It's that simple. You don't have to own anything. You do have to do a lot of reading. You do have to do a lot of work. You do have to be vulnerable enough to be part of a community in which you're going to have to, admit that you don't know everything. You can't do all the things. You have to rely on other people that are better at doing X, Y, or Z. And there's all sorts of things you need to unlearn too to really be in leftist spaces. All right. That's why not everybody see, here's the thing. Socialism is popular. I know that sounds weird, right? Especially here in America. In America, we are constantly told socialism equals bad. Socialism equals breadlines and gulags and the end of all the freedom and the liberty. It all goes away once the socialists do the socialism and all that jazz. Okay, but really when it comes to like what I mean is when it comes to like universal healthcare and or like, hey, let's just give people healthcare. Let's just do that. Can you imagine how awesome that would be if you could just go to a doctor and just see a doctor? You could just go to a hospital. You could just get the operation that you need, and you would not have to worry about going into debt for the rest of your life. You would not have to worry about an insurance company, a privatized insurance company, denying the wheelchair that your grandma needs just for no other reason than they want more of a profit margin. Were you aware of that? That maybe you've heard about the United Healthcare CEO that got clapped? That Luigi guy took him out? But maybe you didn't hear why that happened. Maybe you didn't hear about the fact that United Healthcare literally uses AI algorithms to randomly determine which claims to deny. So that is a thing that United Healthcare did. They would deny wheelchairs that old ladies needed because doctors were saying this person can't walk, so they need a wheelchair. And United Healthcare would turn around and go like, yeah, we don't think they do. And that's what they would do. They would just deny an old lady a wheelchair for no other reason than they don't want to pay for it. Because they want to profit off of your need to get health care. They want to profit off of, they literally want to profit off of not providing you with the health care that you're paying them for. Because you have to pay a monthly premium when you're doing, privatized insurance every month. You don't have a choice in that regard. Okay, 9 times out of 10, you're getting health insurance through your employer, so you don't notice this as much, right? They automatically take out the insurance premium from your check every single month. Now, the premise here, of course, is that you will get the health care that you need when you need it, because the insurance company will pay for it, because now you're making a claim, because now you need a thing. So now they are supposed to pay for the thing that you need because you are their client. You are paying this premium so that just in case you need something somewhere down the road, the insurance company will pay for it. That's how this is spun. That's how we think it works. Okay? That's not how it actually works, though. That is not how it actually works. I just explained how it actually works. Okay? Can you tell how mad this makes me? That these privatized insurance companies are literally just parasites. Okay? That's the right word. They are parasites. They exist to extract wealth from you while not providing you with the thing that you need. They are taking your money and they are very likely giving you nothing in return. Now, to be fair, my insurance doesn't give me nothing in return. Okay, like I don't have to pay completely out of pocket for the prescriptions that I need, so there's that. I don't have to pay completely out of pocket for the doctor's appointments that I need to go to, so there's also that. That's cool, I suppose. It's cool when it works like it should, and I'm not paying as much as I might need to if I was just paying out of pocket, right? But I still need to pay. There's still usually, more often than not, a copay involved if you don't go to a doctor in your network, and that's a whole other ball of wax right there. Okay, the way this works with their networks, and if you want to go somewhere out of network, well, they're just not going to cover it. Okay, and this is yet another by design aspect of privatized insurance, which ensures that they don't have to pay for the healthcare that you need. It's just another excuse for them to not pay for the healthcare that you or your family or your friends need. Okay, so all this to say, the billionaire class is not your friend. All right, if you are a right-winger, all your entire existence is about maintaining and supporting the billionaire class so that they can continue to extract wealth from all of us, so that our lives continue to get harder every single year. If you live in America, come on now, you must notice things are getting more expensive and your wages aren't really rising to match the cost of living. We have a cost of living crisis. We have a housing crisis. Okay? In a nutshell, everything is getting worse. Everything is spiraling out of control. And really, it's as simple as saying capitalism. This is capitalism. This is the system of capital that doesn't really work. Okay? It's propped up by the state. It is enforced by cops, military, the government. All right? That's what forces you to stay where you are. It forces me to keep swinging a mop, to keep doing my stupid, crappy job that I don't care about, because I have to do that in order to pay my rent, in order to go to a doctor, in order to, so I can keep Harry so that he has a home too. We need someplace to live. I need to stay in this little studio that I'm in. I need to be able to keep all these things. Especially, Did you know Donald J. Trump criminalized homelessness? Here's another thing that pisses me off so much. This goofy bastard put out an executive order that has criminalized not having a place to live. And this is especially evil when you take into consideration all of this stuff that I just told you about this system working in a particular way by design to extract as much of your wealth as possible while giving you back as little as possible, because those rich bastards want to keep it all, because they don't care about you. You are a cog in a machine to them. You are an insect in a hive. You are a drone that produces more wealth for them as you're working yourself to death for them. That's capitalism in a nutshell, my friends. And it will only continue to get worse. So all that to stress why I am constantly talking about DSA. This country is driving itself off a cliff. We have to go the other way. We have to turn the needle back leftward. We are literally doing a fascism speed run in this country. All right? And I know, I get it. Whenever leftists such as myself talk about fascism, when we talk about Nazis, we are immediately dismissed. People say, "Oh, that's silly. What are you talking about? What do you mean? What? No, that doesn't happen anymore. No, we beat Hitler in World War II. What do you mean? Freedom, liberty, bald eagle, burgers. It's fine. Shut up. You're the bad people. The socialists. Socialists are bad. You're a communist. You're bad. Go away. Shut up, commie." Here's the thing, though. Yes, fascism is here. It's here. We have the Trump regime. He is a dictator. It does not matter what he's saying, y'all. I know he's saying that he's not a dictator. I know he's going to say he's not racist. All these goofy right-wing chuds do this. They all constantly deny the things that they are and the things that they say and the things that they do. They all co-opt left-wing terminology to try and convince you that they are not doing the bad fascism thing that is going to be objectively bad for you and everyone you know, because fascism always is. All right? Fascism is us versus them. All right? And I know that people get confused. They get confused when they hear socialists talk in the way that I do. That certainly sounds like us versus them when I'm talking about class, when I am talking about the billionaire class and how they are opposed to us, the working class. That sounds like us versus them as well. And it technically kind of sort of is. But see, I'm talking about class. That is very different from the fascists who will talk about race. They will talk about gender. And by that, I mean they will talk about these are the bad people in terms of race. And in terms of gender, they will talk about, oh, women are supposed to be in the home. Women are supposed to cook. Women are supposed to take care of the kids. Okay, so fascism is all about enforcing gender roles on people. Okay. I'm still rambling. Maybe this is why scripts are a good idea, so that you don't just keep talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. But I'm trying to make it clear why DSA is a good thing. Okay? In a nutshell, if fascism is bad, if racism is bad, if bigotry is bad, socialists are the only ones that will oppose all of those things. Socialists oppose fascism because fascism is antithetical to socialism. And again, I know it's confusing because fascists will lie through their teeth and co-opt socialist talking points to sound like they are trying to help make things better for you and your friends and your family, but they are not. That is not what they are doing. Okay? DSA is going to do everything in its power to stop the rise of fascism. It's going to do everything in its power to try and check the capitalists that are trying to take everything you have and leave you dead and dying on the side of the road because they don't care about you. That's why liberals are fine with fascism. They know the fascists will uphold their status quo. Sure, they cause a lot of chaos and kill a lot of people, and it's not great. But liberals pick fascism every single time over socialism because they know socialists want to tear the whole system down. We want to change it completely. We want to take Jeff Bezos's money because he doesn't need that much money. We want to help people eat so that they're not starving to death for no reason other than Jeff Bezos wants to take another trip to the moon. Okay, and all of this segues into the next link, which is a Palestinian aid link. Palestine is another issue that the DSA is very much honed in on. Okay, we are pro-Palestine, which means we are opposed to genocide. We are opposed to the concept of genocide, because of course we are. It's the fascists that like genocide. They want to do that. They're not going to say that technically. They're not going to start with that. But, oh gosh, the mask is starting to drop. Okay, I heard recently on Fox News, this one doofus, Brian Kilmeade, or whatever the hell his name is, just very casually said, yeah, all these homeless people, just kill them. He said that on air, on live television, Fox News, let's do lethal injections for homeless people. You know, rather than just giving them homes and food and helping them get back on their feet and just be able to live and be a person again, rather than freezing to death in the that happens to homeless people, y'all. What do you think happens to homeless people in this country when it's the winter time and they have nowhere to go and it's like 2 degrees below zero? What do you think happens to homeless people in America? They freeze to death. And that happens because of this system that we are in. Okay? It does not happen because they are lazy or dumb or whatever. It's because capitalism. And the genocide happening in Gaza right now is once again another facet of the capitalist system. Okay? Colonialism is a thing that capitalism requires. It's why this country is so dead set on always supporting Israel, no matter how ridiculously unpopular they are starting to get nowadays. Okay? This country needs Israel to exist because it needs to destabilize the Middle East because cheap oil. That's what this is all about. It's all about cheap oil and selling arms to Israel because money. Remember how I was talking about that's all they want? The capitalists, they want more money. They want to profit. They want to extract wealth. So we assume this is usually organically, naturally selling a good product and or service that people want and or need. So we're usually thinking about like washing machines or the kind of shit that we buy. We are not thinking about bombs that we sell to Israel so they can drop them on Palestinian children. That's part of it too, y'all. That's the military-industrial complex. I need to stop. This video is over 3 hours now. It was just supposed to be a simple little first look at a card game, but I have been rambling about all kinds of crap, and I need to stop now. All right? I need to stop. This is going to be a really long video that hopefully somebody will watch, but hey, that was Raxxon. We played that. I talked a little bit. I'm going to see y'all when I see you. Take it easy and take care of each other, y'all. See you next time.